Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla coming back to ya with another episode of Walks with Schla. And, as time continues to go on, I guess the situation I don't really want to get into, because I really don't want to be public about things, but I think it's affecting me more than, well, I could have already told you it was going to affect me a lot, but just possible that my life is going to change pretty drastically very soon. I think really regardless, that's very possible. I mean, I could be wrong, but I was just really hoping for a lot of the confusion and turmoil to be over months ago, and to know that it's still, things are still definitely just worse than they were, and it's a pretty gloomy start to December 1st 2025, a time where I remember on this walk switch law right around where I'm walking right now, I was proclaiming that things should get much better going into December. That's not really apparent. I did end up spending a lot of money, and there were issues with the deals that are getting worked out. I don't even really feel like talking about it. But there's a greater meaning and message in that. I don't know if I discussed it on a walk switch law or not. It may have just been something I figured out over the weekend. But there's a lesson in that, me getting deals and stuff. It's a good skill, but it ends up consuming you. It's really no different than an addiction. You could argue it's a beneficial addiction, but it's not. It's an addiction nonetheless. It's absolutely an addiction nonetheless. And yeah, I just don't know. I don't really know where to be at in life right now. I didn't get to do the transcript from the first episode, but I actually plan to, because somehow it came out okay. I'm a little bit surprised because, typical wisdom would make you think that since I'm dealing with so much now and there's so much uncertainty, an episode wouldn't turn out well. But I guess, I don't know, maybe pain, maybe suffering, it evokes a certain emotion, a certain growth or something. I'm not really sure. But it's just me and my microphone and the grass and the sun and the cold air right now in the beginning of a dark December. The trajectory of things has not been good in my private life, and I just don't even know anymore. I never would have imagined I would be in the situation that I'm in, because everything else in my life has been good. I have no complaints about my job, besides presumably societal level issues, because I don't get paid a living wage, but it's not really the company's fault necessarily. It's really, that's a major economical and societal issue. I don't think it's just the company I work for. And so, yeah, I mean, isn't that hard when you have so many boxes checked? You're a really mindful person. You're trying so hard to analyze situations, be very patient, see things from different angles. And then there's certain people who just do nothing. and they assert a very limited and incorrect, aggressive, opinionated view on, and you know, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. There's no sense to be made about it. And I don't really have anybody in my life to talk to, really. It's always felt that way. It's always felt that way since I was around a teenager. You know, it's just nobody ever really gave me any advice that felt like it made sense until this very recent GPT 5.1. I don't even know that the advice from GPT 4 or 5 was even perfect. You know, 4's was a little bit too supportive and less, you know, accurate and growth inducing. And then 5's was just kind of stale, and it kind of felt like, you know, GPT 5 really couldn't strike anything very well. And I mean, it was a little more truthful, and its communicative style was absolutely worse. So you also have that going for it. But GPT 5.1, I feel like it's a vessel where I can communicate with, and I actually get like competent advice. You know, like there's like something it's a competent answer to some of these questions, because I think I think I've explained this before, like it's possible, even though I'm only in my early 20s, I've already outthought most people on a lot of these topics who are in their 70s, because most people just, I don't even know if they have many thoughts. If they do have thoughts, it may just be, I'm bored, I'm hungry, things like that, which I barely even think about those things. So yeah, I mean, and I know it might sound egotistical, but it's really not. There's a lot of pain in waiting. I mean, I feel like, you know, if I could just make it to an adult, then some people might finally decide to recognize me a little more because I'd be an adult. But it's like, for now, since I'm younger, I just get like brushed aside, like, oh, well, what does that guy know? Or there's a lot of other things too about how much people honestly seem to be very anti-tech, and that kind of, I just think that's like a misstep. But, you know, so there's just a lot of things and principles that I believe that I really try hard to, and I'm sure there's more growth for me too, in terms of discovering the perfect ideology or whatever the best beliefs are. I don't think I'm there right now, but I think there's people that can't have that discussion, and they may think that they may not even see things as beliefs. They may just think that whatever they think is just true. And like, how do you square that? You know what I mean? How do you take that and square it? I mean, you can't really convince people of anything, it seems. It's actually kind of a problem. It's much easier to convince someone of something incorrect or bad for them than it is to teach them the right thing. And that just causes a lot of compounding problems. It's easier to feed into somebody's delusions than to actually help them, with some kind of real love. A real love, a real care, appreciation is not just always going to cater, but that's kind of what people see it as now. I think they just see it as a catering thing, and people are just, they're also pretty rugged nowadays. And I don't mean in the literal sense, because in the literal sense, most people are as soft as ever. You know, if there was another economic calamity, I don't even know what would happen to people, because people are not self-sufficient at all. We are extremely systems dependent. Barely anybody is able to fend for themselves. I know I'm not. And it's very concerning, you know, how much we rely on these systems and how much the systems are being destroyed as we speak. They're not being remade in a better image, but they're just kind of getting cut. You know, the government's systems and services, and not even just the government, but the economy. We are far more dependent on the economy, I think, than even 20 years ago. I think 20 years ago, more people would be able to live without money. Nowadays, we're kind of lazy. We're very much in our own comfort bubbles, and if there was an economic collapse, like, a lot of people would just die. You know, they don't really know how to hunt or fend for themselves or really anything like that. So it's just, it's sad when you think about it, and people don't really take the system seriously. I think there's a lot of people who still hate government and think it's all no good. You know, they don't trust it, and it doesn't really work well in their favor, really. It just doesn't. And I don't know, is it strange, like, even when I'm under the amount and the type of stress that I'm under, this is like still, I mean, I've already done a full reflection. You know, I already did that like last night for a long time and this morning, and I'm still going to continue to do that huge reflection. But I'm saying, in my other time from my personal stresses and struggles with people, you notice I'm still thinking about stuff in the big picture and trying to, like, I'm not just fooling around. I'm not just like, it's really upsetting to see that most people, they just play video games, they just listen to music, they just shut off, and they're not available. They're essentially dead and distracted, you know. And then I'm always here, like, I'm always, like, I think it's been so stuck in my head, that thing. I know this is like silly, but on my recent album, at the end of one of the tracks, I was like, I'm here, I'm still here. And that just, like, really, the way I said it and the meaning of it is so true, because that's just always how I felt. Like, I feel like I'm always here for people. I'm always trying to help and assist, and it just never works. I mean, how can you explain something like that? How are people that cold and callous, you know? It doesn't really add up. It's very confusing to me, but like I said, I'm well aware. I've lived a very sheltered life in order to get to this point, because a lot of people just have to learn to fight. They're just in it. They're in the thick of it, and yeah, things are just gonna get tight. I mean, people really, because as the economy is slipping and sliding, as the social infrastructure is crumbling right before our eyes, there's just going to be more stress all around. And instead of being mature and civil about it and being grateful just for what we do have, people are going to claw and grab, and, you know, it's just going to get ugly due to selfishness and incivility, you know, these animalistic traits of our human being. It's very sad, you know, it's really sad. But that's what I mean. I mean, how am I still this conscious of what goes on, and yet I'm always the one hurting when people hurt me and mistreat me, like and I'm here, and I'm like, but people make themselves unavailable because they can't process what they did wrong, and they're off playing video games and just like chatting. I mean, I just don't know. I don't understand how that's fair. Like, why is that not given some kind of consequence? I think I've talked about this a lot on this show. It's just really upsetting, how people are. But learning this, it doesn't surprise me how the world is at this point. It really doesn't surprise me at all. It's just, and I just wonder, like, what life would be like if there were more like-minded humans to mine. Like, I just wonder how different even I would be. The certain things that I have, the depressiveness that I have, it might not even be there, It's just like, I think it's difficult to not have such a slump all the time when, like, you're thinking the way I do, and then you try to interact with the world, and it's so distant and dirty, like so many of my depressive things, like how I can't clean my room and all these other things, like, if there were just more like-minded people that cared, that cared about trying to lift humanity to a higher point, and even intrapersonally, parasocially, like just trying to help, I mean, things would be amazing. Things could really be like really amazing, and it's so difficult for me to do that. And so I don't know, so much is unknown. My future, it could change. It could be relatively spontaneous and dangerous moving forward, and it's already been quite the upheaval. So I don't even know, it's like a really, really tricky and difficult situation. It's terrible. And I try to think about law of attraction stuff. It still kind of whispers in the back of my mind that I need to try to be more positive. But like I said, I really have my doubts about that system, and how if I'm super positive and I end up getting more than somebody else, like, it just doesn't sit right with me, I feel like the law of attraction really perpetuates the same problems I point out. But I don't know, is that me squandering my own conscious power? I think I've talked about this before. It's like, am I even supposed to feel bad about people who maybe their souls are just not... But I don't want to think of it that way, like the hierarchy thing. I guess deep down, it's just so difficult for me to accept that the floor of human stupidity is like that far, and people are just that like evil, I don't want to believe it. I still want to think that, like, the baseline is that people want to be like happy and just kind of try to do the right thing. But I know that is absolutely not, that's just not the baseline at all. I think the baseline is far beneath that, So it's really tragic and difficult for me. And if I was closer to that median of how people are selfish, ignorant, just, after a big argument, just go right to video games, I mean, I'd be happier. I'd be better suited for this realm. But as it turns out, I'm just not, because I'm ready to solve things. I'm fine with apologizing and communicating, and it doesn't seem like anybody else ever is or has been. Is it a maturity issue with my generation? I mean, what could be the problem? Or has it always been the case? Has it always just been like this? It's so difficult to say. I guess it's maybe a mix of things, but I do think the nature of the internet and really it's been the TikTok, like I've said, people just don't want to work through things. People don't want to work through anything, and you can't really fight that too much, can you? Like, if, I could want to work through things 10 times over, but if the other person is a brick wall, then I don't really understand how I can get through to that. And then I'm left walking on this green grass, staring at the blue sky. The sun's shining and the air is cold. And it's really the beginning of a dark December, as far as I'm concerned. But I hope things will turn around. It's just, it wouldn't be realistic to say that things are fine right now. That just simply wouldn't be a realistic perspective. Should I try to take the law of attraction route? Is it too far gone at this point? It's kind of hard to say, but I've been at a breaking point for months, and I'd really try not to show it on this show, but I've really been going downhill, and I need some kind of turnaround, and I've been saying that for months now. So I'm really at my wit's end with things. It's been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see ya schla.